Now look, I love Tangled. I made multiple videos praising it, calling one of the best modern Disney fairy tale stories, even better than Frozen in a lot of ways, because it is such a warm Disney classic. However, like every story, it doesn't escape logical scrutiny, and those plot holes are just getting hard to ignore. And I've been on this roll lately, breaking down Disney movies by separating the great story from the terrible logic. Recently, of course, I roasted the world building in Frozen and how Elsa's whole rule over the kingdom was complete nonsense, infuriatingly bad for someone supposedly in charge of governance. And that got me thinking more about Disney logic in these modern fairy tales, especially Tangled. And look, no fairy tale has ever been super logical, or films for that matter. From Snow White onward, they never had to be, and nobody even really cared. But starting in the Renaissance era, and especially when Disney started making bigger complex worlds, they had to sell some sort of believability to the world. And Tangled, as Disney's first major 3D fairy tale, really shows this. You're no longer limited to static hand-drawn shots, where everything is built in the same 3D engine. You can spin those shots around, show massive environments, and deep dive into the world. And that means your backstory and rules have to hold up better because you're literally showing more. And that's one of the reasons I thought Frozen has some of the worst world building in modern Disney. It talks about trade partners, governance, and international relations, yet the kingdom's setup is one of the most unstable and poorly managed that you could even imagine. And guess what? Tangled has its own version of that problem, and that's why we're diving into that today. But let me be clear about this. None of this changes how much I love the movie. I still enjoy Tangled a ton, and nothing here I say overrides that. But we also gotta be honest how shaky the world building is, even if the story itself is good. So today we're gonna talk about the problem with Tangled, and it all starts with truly terrible management. And if we go back to the beginning, the movie opens with Flynn Rider narrating the story. We learn about the magical flower that Gothel has been using for centuries to stay young. The queen gets deathly ill while pregnant, and the kingdom tracks down the flower, or she's healed, and a healthy baby princess named Rapunzel is born with golden hair. And to celebrate, the king and queen launch a lantern into the sky. Everything is perfect for about 5 seconds. And then, during the night when they all go to sleep, Gothel sneaks into the royal nursery and steals the baby. And this is where the first major break hits. Gothel just walked through a cracked balcony door leading into the baby's room. No guards were posted outside, and no guards were inside. There are no locked doors, and there are completely nothing separating her from the baby. She just strolls up in the crib like it's a self-checkout, cuts a piece of baby hair, realizes it won't work, and then yoinks the entire princess out of the hands while the queen and king just stare. So think about that for a second. This isn't some random side room. This is the royal chamber. The future of the kingdom is sleeping up in there, and their security plan is just to leave the balcony door cracked open and hope for the best. It's not even a break-in at this point. It's practically an invitation. And this one scene tells us everything we need to know about Corona's security. It's basically non-existent. The kingdom that mobilized an entire search party to find a magical flower just couldn't even put up one guard near their newborn princess on the night that they're celebrating her birth. And that's not just lazy parenting, that's comically bad kingdom management. And the part that pisses me off the most is that at the beginning of the movie, when Queen Ariana is deathly sick, the entire kingdom mobilizes. It's not just the guards, it's a full-blown national effort including commoners or other people and merchants. They hunt down legends, scour the forest, and actually find that one magical golden flower. They bring it back, heal the queen, and that directly leads to Rapunzel's magical hair. Like, cool, great, they can organize when they want to, but the second that the same baby princess gets stolen from the royal chambers, there's nothing that they do about it. There's zero effort and no follow-up search parties, no kingdom-wide manhunt like they did for the flower, where Flynn's narration just casually says the kingdom searched and searched, but they could not find the princess, and that's it. No details, no explanation, just well, I guess we tried. And then it's just complete radio silence for 18 years. No guards are ever shown still looking, no common folks searching parties like they did when the queen was sick, no updates, and just completely nothing. And every year, instead, what they do is just light up some lanterns, make a wish, and go back to normal life like their princess wasn't kidnapped from their own castle. That this kingdom went harder to try to save their queen than they did to even recover their own daughter and future ruler. Corona is just a kingdom that has atrocious priorities and even worse management. The kingdom that moved mountains for a flower just basically shrugged when their most important citizen disappeared. That's just not a small plot hole, that's a massive world building failure. And so what's the uncomfortable solution that we're left with? Well, that's of course just like we said, releasing thousands of lanterns every year on her birthday. Now, I'll admit, story-wise, this is a very beautiful moment. It becomes a major plot point later to Rapunzel's character, where those lanterns are huge, breathtaking, and they fuel her yearning for the outside world. It's a fantastic character beat, but logically, it really doesn't make sense. Because you have the king and queen here who have an entire kingdom, guards, resources, and authority, where they literally just mobilize the whole country to find one magical flower, yet when their actual daughter gets stolen, the long-term strategy is just annual sky lanterns and hope. The problem with this is that you're not common parents with no power, you're the heads of state. You can command search parties, you can send scouts, and you can keep investigations going for years. There should be zero hesitation, especially after you already proved you can organize when something else matters. But instead, they basically give up and turn their daughter's disappearance into a yearly light show like that's ever going to help. And this is where the real problem comes in. It proves how weak and lazy Corona's leadership actually is. If this is the level of effort that they're willing to put into recovering their own princess, it shows everyone just how easy it is to steal from the kingdom, which perfectly brings us to our next point. This proof is shown 18 years later with Flynn Rider and the Stabbington brothers, who decide to steal the crown of the very lost princess that we're talking about right out of the castle. And to no surprise, they pull it off ridiculously easily. They climb across the rooftops, drop in from the ceiling, and Flynn just walks up behind one lone guard and makes a sarcastic comment about hay fever and swipes the crown off the pedestal like he's picking up milk from the grocery store. That whole thing gets almost botched because Flynn, being Flynn, his charming self, he stops to admire the view, starts monologuing about wanting his own castle, and wastes precious time flexing. But even with that, he almost gets away clean. And let that sink in. This isn't some minor jewel. This is the crown belonging to the missing princess, one of the most important symbols in the kingdom, and they stole it with minimal effort. In the same way, crossing those rooftops just like Gothel probably did when she stole Rapunzel. And at this point, Corona's guards aren't acting like elite soldiers protecting a kingdom. They're operating at the level of underpaid arcade security guards who can't even stop a guy from sneaking through the ceiling, because one sneeze distraction and the most valuable item in the castle is gone. This isn't just bad luck anymore, this is just a pattern. And a kingdom that's this easy to rob not once but twice in the most important places is just a kingdom that's basically asking to be taken advantage of. And that's exactly what happened. Which is honestly very weird compared to even other past Disney films. Like if you look at Aladdin, in the very first scene, one jump ahead, he as a street rat gets chased down by guards through the entire town. Again, here in Tangled, it takes until he steals the entire crown that they get chased eventually, but even then, they get away. And talking about Flynn's escape, where after he steals the crown, the guards and Maximus chase him through the forest. Flynn here ends up ditching the Stabbington brothers, stabbing them through the back, swinging through the trees, and within 10 minutes of the film, he stumbles right into the hidden cove and finds Rapunzel's tower. That same tower where Gothel had been hiding the princess for 18 years. Where think about this, Flynn, a random thief on the run, finds the most important missing person in the entire kingdom in under 10 minutes, but the royal guards and the entire kingdom couldn't find her in nearly 2 decades. I mean, sure, you could argue that the tower was hidden well enough, but come on, if your guards or troops were actually serious, they would be combing every corner of nearby terrain. A giant obvious tower in a cove isn't some impossible to find needle in the haystack. It's something that exists, and it's something to search like all great nations have done. When they go to war or across nations, they scour each and every area of terrain, but Corona doesn't do that, because this is the same kingdom that successfully tracked down one specific magical flower hidden in the woods where the queen was sick, where they had the manpower, the motivation, and the organization to do so, but not to find their own princess. And this gets worse when you realize the only time that they ever seem to take action is when someone steals a tiara. Flynn swipes the crown and suddenly the entire guard army is mobilized. Maximus is on the case and it's in full pursuit mode, but to their actual daughter, zip, nothing but lanterns will do. This isn't a hidden tower problem, this is a Corona has zero real interest in actually finding her problem. And that makes their security and leadership even more laughable each time you watch it. And in the end, how does Rapunzel finally get reunited with her parents? Not because the kingdom finally got its act together, not because the guards finally did their job after 18 years, or it just takes the entire movie, Flynn, Rapunzel herself, Pascal, Maximus, and a bunch of thugs from the Snuggly Duckling to make it all happen. The royal guards themselves, they contribute almost nothing meaningful. The kingdom that couldn't find her in nearly 2 decades suddenly get their happy ending handed to them by the very people they should have been protecting and searching for all along. It's actually kind of pathetic if you think about it in that way. The king and queen, for all their power and resources, never actually solved anything. They let lanterns hope for the best and waited for the outside heroes to fix their mistake. The same guards who got outsmarted by one sassy thief couldn't actually find a giant tower in their own backyard. and because of that, they suddenly look even more foolish and useless when the resolution comes from a conman, a princess with a frying pan, and some bar thugs. This whole situation is the final proof that Corona's leadership and security were never going to get her back on their own. They had to get extremely lucky that Flynn literally ran into the tower while running from them. That's not good governance. That's just embarrassing. All of this just honestly makes me wonder, who the hell would actually live in Corona? If I was a citizen of this kingdom, how would I ever trust my leaders? They couldn't even protect their own newborn daughter in the royal castle in their own room, where she got stolen on their very watch and basically gave up after that with lighting some pretty lanterns for the next 18 years. And how am I supposed to trust the royal army or the guards when they can't even protect the most important people and items in the kingdom? They couldn't find the princess, they couldn't guard her crown, and they got completely outplayed by one cocky thief and an old lady with a cloak. Where you have to actually wonder that Corona isn't just badly managed, it's one of the least safest kingdoms in any Disney movie. Your leaders only seem to care when it's convenient. They'll move mountains for a magical flower, but not for their own child. These basically here have the greatest chance at paradise in this entire kingdom, where you walk in, take what you want, climb out a window, or drop from the ceiling. So if you were a citizen, your stuff that you manage right now wouldn't probably be safe come tomorrow morning. There is no serious protection for the princess, and no real searching unless it's for flowers, just vibes, lanterns, and hope nothing bad happens for the best. It's a beautiful kingdom on the surface, it's got amazing architecture, but underneath, it's just a complete mess. And so, in that nutshell, that is the problem with Tangled. The security is laughably bad, the leadership is incompetent, and the search for the princess was basically non-existent, and the world building had some massive holes that are hard to ignore once you start looking. But then again, here's the thing. Despite all of this doesn't change how I feel about the movie. Like I said at the very beginning, I genuinely love Tangled. I praised it multiple times and I still stand by that. It's a fun, heartwarming Disney classic with fantastic characters, great music, and one of the best modern fairy tale stories that they've ever told. The story itself is still excellent and it still should be praised as such. But the problems only show up when you start questioning the logic and the kingdom around it. And it's just such a shame that the world building and decision making had to be this weak to get us there. Disney just needs to do better in this department with that stuff if they want stronger fairy tale stories going forward. Otherwise, they risk sliding back into Frozen territory where the story is carried by charisma, but the world makes you regret ever wanting to live there. Where all in all, Tangled still is a classic. But just don't think too hard about moving to Corona anytime soon. I'm all done now, finally seeing the light after the fog had been lifted by the story's problems. Goodbye.